Greetings to you all! I truly enjoy covering topics related to the latest and the most technologically advanced cinema formats and innovations that are shaping the future of how we experience film. But at the same time, I'm equally excited to explore the heritage formats, the technologies that laid the foundation for everything that we see today. About a year ago, I released a video about Cinerama, a groundbreaking system first introduced in 1952 that redefined the scale of immersion in cinema. At the same time, Cinerama was expensive, complicated and not really reliable, so naturally engineers of that period started asking, how can we achieve the same level of immersion but make it simpler? And this is where Todd-AO comes in, reducing complexity, improving reliability and lowering the costs, while maintaining the same level of immersion. After Todd-AO, there were several other formats such as Super Panavision 70 and Ultra Panavision 70, which eventually led to development of 1570 IMAX, often considered a pinnacle of motion picture film. But that's a story for another video. Pictureville is a unique cinema capable of presenting film in a wide range of formats, from DCP to 35 and 70mm film, as well as extremely rare Cinerama, and even Todd-AO. When I attended the Widescreen Weekend Film Festival in September 2025, part of the program included the 1992 American non-narrative documentary Baraka. Baraka is one of the last examples connected to the Todd-AO legacy, shot using 65mm film and finished through Todd-AO production and post-production processes. And interestingly, it was first feature film to be restored and scanned in 8K resolution. It would certainly be great to see a proper 4K release, as the only widely available version today is still in HD. Pictureville Projectionist Symon, who presented the screening and delivered a short lecture on Baraka, has kindly agreed to share more insight into the format and what actually makes Todd-AO different from everything that came before and after. Alright, just before we start, I have one quick request. Please consider subscribing, giving this video a like, leaving a comment or hitting the notification bell. All of these help the channel to reach a wider audience and allow me to keep making content like this. And if you would like to support BoardTech channel directly, you can use the Super Thanks feature here on YouTube, or consider becoming a patron on Patreon. All the links you need are in the video description below. Last time I spoke with Symon, he was lacing up a magnificent 70mm print of Phantom Thread. Do check out that video. That's also when I learned about Todd-AO and got the idea to explore this format in more detail.
So this is our Todd-AO projection lens. It's the lens that we use for any of our 2.2:1 aspect ratio 70mm pictures on the flat screen. We have a totally different lens for the curved screen, and we have a totally different lens for when the film is formatted for 1:8:5. And this is a original Todd-AO lens from the period. It is, as you can see, the way I'm holding it, quite bulky, of quite a considerable weight. There's quite a lot of glass in there, and it looks absolutely stunning when it's on the screen. Baraka is the second of 3 70mm films that we're showing at the festival this year, but it was the first to arrive on site, and I was very excited to thread it up and have a run of it. And as I quite often do, I messaged Bex and I said, does anyone from the film team want to come and have a look? Or we ran it, and nobody was in that day, so they, unfortunately, but afterwards they said, how did it look? How did it look? Good. I said, good? Good? That looks fabulous. And then I continued to wax lyrical about the picture quality of this film for about 10 minutes, and they asked me if I'd do it again in front of you fine people, so here I am. Todd-AO was a 65mm negative camera format that translates into a 70mm print, and it was ordained to replace the 3-panel Cinerama process. And it was engineered to able to reproduce the same field of view and onto the same deeply curved screens. It was also, in its first instance, designed to run at 30 frames per second, which was short-lived, but they made the first two feature films in Todd-AO were made at 30 frames per second, and they were Oklahoma and Around the World in 80 Days.
Interesting fact that the Oklahoma was actually shot twice at the same time. Once on Todd-AO 65mm film at 30 frames per second, and again on standard CinemaScope 35mm film at 24 frames per second. All of this effort was necessary because Todd-AO projection was still a rarity, and without a 35mm version, most cinemas simply wouldn't be able to run the screenings.
After that, the third Todd-AO film, South Pacific, was made at 24 frames per second, and then all the other ones after it were also. This was largely to do with expense. It was costing the studios quite a lot of money to work out how to get the films transferred to 35mm at 24 frames per second, and they quickly cottoned on that it was a lot cheaper and easier to make reduction prints from the 70mm if they could keep the frame rate the same. So this lens is a little bit weighty. You kind of support its head and slot it into the projector whilst trying not to drop it. But the lenses that we used in the camera came with a range of lenses, but the widest angle lens was ordained to match that field of view that the original 3-strip Cinerama camera had, and it became affectionately known as the bug eye because it was so wide it could practically see behind itself. And it was a very large front element which made the camera look quite funny in appearance, and the resulting shots were quite unique.
Another interesting detail I came across on filmatlas.com is that despite the heavy publicity around the lens, it was reportedly used in only 4 shots in the final cut of Oklahoma, and was rarely employed afterwards due to the noticeable spatial distortion of the 12.7mm lens.
So having briefly demonstrated the lens that we use for 70mm on the flat screen, I'm now holding the lens that we use for 70mm on our curved screen. Formats such as Todd-AO were made to be shown on curved screens, but with a lesser degree of curvature, around 126 degrees, whereas our screen was built for 3-strip Cinerama, so it's closer to 138 degrees. And for that, the lens has a Dimension 150 designed Super Curvilon lens, which helps to keep the image sharp and in focus around the curved screen. So it begins at this end with a conventional projection lens for magnification. That goes up to about there, and then all of the rest of it is the optics to keep the image sharply focused around the deeply curved screen.
Only a handful of feature films were ever produced in this format. In reality, 30 frames per second Todd-AO was gone almost as soon as it arrived, lasting barely 2 years before the industry moved on. Despite that, it remains an important step in the evolution of motion picture film, influencing many of the formats we know today. Let me know in the comments if you have ever had the chance to experience an original Todd-AO presentation. I'd be really curious to hear your stories. This is it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe to BoardTech channel, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Goodbye.